All right, so this is the video for the Wednesday Wars, December Part 1. This is the answer sheet that's the last part of your old homework package. So it's the very last one. And then tomorrow we'll do the first one in the new homework package, December Part 2. So you have 4 questions. What will every junior high be taking in January? When was the last time they had snow on Christmas? Why will it be cute? And when is it hard to complain? All right, so December, Part 1. On the first Wednesday of December, Mr. Guareschi announced over the PA that in January, every junior and senior high in the state would be taking the New York State Standardized Achievement Tests. That's number 1. And that we should plan on taking practice exams at home during the holiday break. The reputation of the school was at stake, he told us, and he was very, very, very confident that we would not let Camillo Junior High down. I'm not sure, but I think Mrs. Baker rolled her eyes. The rest of the morning announcements were as exciting as the December drizzles, and maybe Mr. Guareschi knew that, because he said he wanted to conclude by reading a lovely note from Mrs. Sidman. She wished us all a happy holiday spirit at this very special time of year, and hoped that, even in a time of war, we might be able to use these holidays to reflect on the virtues of peace and goodwill. She hoped all of this very sincerely. The letter, Mr. Guareschi told us, was written from Connecticut, where Mrs. Sidman was taking a retreat in seclusion. Actually, the whole school was in a happy holiday spirit, even before Mrs. Sidman's letter. On one side of the main lobby, Mr. Vendleri had put up a huge fir tree and wound it with silver garlands. Decorations as big as grapefruits hung from each branch, plastic ones, because last Christmas Mr. Vendleri had seen what Doug Switek's brother did to the glass ones. Whenever there was a Christmas decoration, there was tinsel as well, hanging down, except when the lobby doors opened and it blew straight out. And then, I guess because Mr. Vendleri believed that no Christmas tree should show any green at all, he had sprayed quick-drying foam snow over the whole thing, as though there really might be snow on Long Island on Christmas Day, which hadn't happened since before there was a Christmas Day. That's number 2. On the other side of the main lobby was the menorah. It was heavy and old, and had belonged to Mr. Samowitz's family for a whole lot longer than 200 years. Some of the white wax that clung to the sides of the bronze cups came from candles that had been lit in Russia. We looked at it, standing on its white linen cloth as huge as history, and could almost smell the sweet wax in the darkness of a long time ago. That week, the grade 2s made red and green construction paper chains that they hung the length of the elementary and junior high halls. The grade 4s cut menorahs from cardboard and covered them with glittering aluminum foil. The grade 1s cut out the flames for each of the 9 candles, and together they put a menorah on every classroom door. The grade 5s had Charles, who could not only collect erasers, but could write exquisite calligraphy, which made every girl in his grade, and some in grade 6, fall in love with him. Just because he could write Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah with loopy swirls. His signs appeared all over the hall, and the gushing grade 5 girls colored in the loops secretly to show their eternal love and devotion to the artist. Danny Hupfer said it just about made him throw up. All through Camillo Junior High, there were signs of the season. The windows and the classroom doors became crepe paper-stained glass. Mr. Petrelli put flashing colored lights around his door, and menorah with orange light bulbs on his window shelf. Mr. Ludema, who was from Holland, put wooden shoes on his shelf and filled them with straw and coal, probably because he was Doug Switek's brother's teacher. Mrs. Baker didn't put anything up, nothing at all. She took down the aluminum foil menorah the grade ones had put on her door, and she wouldn't let any of Charles's signs into the room. When Mrs. Kabikoff came in carrying a crock of apple cider left over from the grade 2 Pilgrim Feast, offering a special holiday drink for lunch, Mrs. Baker smiled one of those smiles that isn't really a smile, and then had Danny Hupford take the crock and shove it back on the high shelf in the coat room above the moldering lunches. Mrs. Baker was not in a happy holiday spirit. And to be really honest, neither was I. All because of Mr. Goldman and the Long Island Shakespeare Company's holiday extravaganza, in which I was going to play Ariel the fairy. And nothing I said to Mr. Goldman helped. Every boy should be so lucky as you to play in the Shakespeare Company's holiday extravaganza, and with such a part, he said. I should have been lucky as you at your age. But let me tell you, wearing yellow tights wasn't making me feel very lucky. Not if I wanted to keep living in this town. So I showed the tights to my mother, who I figured would have some concern for her only son's reputation. They're very yellow, she said. And they have white feathers all over the... Yes, she said. But you know, it will be cute, because the feathers will sort of wave in the breeze when you walk. And that's number 3. I still can't get over it, my son playing Shakespeare. But they're yellow tights. I'm playing a fairy. If this gets out, I'll never be able to go back to school. No one from Camillo Junior High will be there, and even if they were, everyone will think it's cute. So I tried my father. I handed him the tights while Walter Cronkite was announcing new bombing in Vietnam. I thought they might catch his eye, even though the CBS Evening News was on. They sure did. You're going to wear these? He said. That's what they want. Yellow tights with white feathers on the... Whose idea is this? It's Mr. Goldman's idea. My father tried looking away from the yellow tights, which wasn't easy since they were the brightest thing in the room, and they tended to draw the eye. Mr. Goldman, he said. I think you've heard the rest of this conversation before. Yes, I said. The Benjamin Goldman who belongs to Goldman's Best Bakery. I guess that's the one, I said. My father looked at the yellow tights again, sort of shielding his eyes, and considered. The day might come, he said finally, when Goldman thinks about expanding his business, and then he'd need to hire an architect. But Dad, maybe one that he remembers doing him a favor. I can't wear these, I said. He handed the tights back to me. Wear them. Just hope that no one from school sees you. I didn't try my sister, but she came to my door anyway. Mom told me about the tights, she said. Let me see. I showed her. When this gets around school, it won't get around school? I said. Sure it won't, she said. Keep telling yourself that and maybe it'll come true. But if it ever gets over to the high school, you better pray that no one knows I'm your sister. She shut the door. That doesn't sound like a flower child who doesn't do any harm to anyone, I hollered after her, but she didn't answer. It didn't help that on the night of the first dress rehearsal, I wore my blue jeans over the yellow tights until the last minute. The entire cast of the Long Island Shakespeare Company's holiday extravaganza clapped when I came on stage. Which they did because they had to do something when they saw where the feathers were, and what they really wanted to do was laugh out loud, but they knew what I would do, and it was too late to find another kid to play Ariel the fairy. I mean, who else was going to wander into Goldman's Best Bakery and be $2.80 short on an order of cream puffs? Mr. Goldman, I said after the applause, I can't wear these. Of course you can wear these. You're wearing these right now. But I look like a fairy. And this isn't the point. You should look like a fairy. You are a fairy. Don't you know what will happen if someone from school sees me? They will say, there is Holling Hood on stage playing one of Shakespeare's greatest scenes from one of his greatest plays. That is what will happen. Mr. Goldman, it's been a long time since you were